Hey friends, Rick from BCW Supplies here with another BCW Spotlight. This time I'm in Philadelphia and I'm visiting with my friends here at Alternate Universe. Let's head on inside and take a look around. Hey friends, Rick from BCW Supplies here in Philadelphia at Alternate Universe, and I've been joined by the owner, Mike. Mike, thank you for having us out here, and thank you for taking time out of your schedule to sit and talk with us. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you. Thanks for coming by.
Hey, no, it's a pleasure. I've been to this store. Now what is the name of the town we're in? It was Bluebell, and when
This is East Norriton, Pennsylvania. We used to have our store used to be in Bluebell, about a mile away from here, and we moved down here about 5 years ago.
Okay, so I've always known the store as Bluebell, but we're at one of three of your locations.
That's correct.
And we'll get more into that in just a minute. So I always like to start these off by asking, how did you get involved in gaming?
Well, this is sort of a weird story, a different story. Back in 2003, I was laid off from a job that I have in distribution. And at the time, my son was playing Dragon Ball Z with a really good friend of his at a card store sort of near to our house. And the owner of that card store was a nasty person. And he didn't like the kids, but he liked their money. So he would not let them use their bathroom, and they would be there for hours on end. And so they would have to go to the Chinese restaurant or someplace else around if they had to go. We're talking 11, 12-year-olds too here. So when I got laid off, my son said, hey, Dad, you should open a game store so we'd have a nice place to go. So I started looking into it because I was unemployed and found that it was fairly feasible to do. I have background in retail and in distribution. So we started working on it. It was more of I wasn't sure we were actually going to do it or whether it was just a project for him and I to work on together, some father-son bonding time. And it became very doable. So with a small amount of money that I had set aside, we opened our first store in Holmes, Pennsylvania, about 18 years ago. 18
years ago, you just gave your son a game store. I mean, Dad of the Year award right there. I'm a father myself, and I can tell you right now, I would not buy my kids a game store. But no, I mean, so it was out of, I don't want to say boredom, but out of the available time and the necessity to have a safer environment, a nicer environment for your son and his friends and the community. And you guys open up the first location.
Right.
And now, did you ever get into gaming yourself?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, we opened the store and we attracted some people in. I mean, it wasn't a big operation at first. It was, like any store, you start out and you grow your business. But the first weekend we were open, a gentleman came in who worked for, I don't know what they would call him, like a judge for Decipher. They had a name. I forget what he was called. And he wanted me to push into Decipher. At the time, we were really only doing Dragon Ball Z, Magic, and a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh! And he wanted me to come and do that. And he started talking. I said, well, what kind of products do they sell? And he started talking about Lord of the Rings and Star Trek. Well, I'm a big Star Trek person. So he taught me how to play Star Trek. And so we played all the time in the store, and I played. We had a league. We had 18, 20 people at one point playing, and it was great. Until, of course, Decipher went out of business, but yeah.
Well, so you're making me really sad and nostalgic. So my personal story, little side here, my wife's uncle worked for Decipher, specifically on the Star Trek The Next Generation game. For Christmas 8 years ago or so, my mother-in-law and my wife gave me their collector's investors set that was all of the original Star Trek The Next Generation black border cards
right.
from the base set. So like I played the game as a kid. And then I was gifted this with the letter of, hey, thank you for supporting Decipher, like appreciation, that was apparently handed out at like some party that Decipher had. And it had a bunch of like sealed little seeded packs, the clear packs, and there some first edition packs and boxes. And
nice.
It was just a little, hey, here's the whole set and type, and that just makes me smile because like I have not thought about that game in years, other than the fact that I knew somebody who worked for Decipher, and we talk about it. So. That's amazing that was like the game. Like I was expecting you to say Star Wars. Like honestly, because that was like one of their first big hits was the Star Wars game from Decipher. And Lord of the Rings was another decent sized hit for them. And then you're like Star Trek: The Next Generation, and I'm like, I know that game. I know the Enterprise C, Days of Future Past. I know that. Yeah. No.
Yep.
So that makes me giggle. So. Let's fast forward a little bit into more of the present day. You have a beautiful store. I noticed you guys are a WPN premium store.
We are.
Congratulations on that. The store is aesthetically beautiful. You have a different vibe because you've done something that I haven't seen a lot of retailers do, and that is that you have put a physical divide between your retail space and your organized play space. And this organized play space, beautiful tables, beautiful chairs, and you can host, I would assume, rather large events just in this area alone.
Yeah, I think this room holds about 84 players, so we fully full out. Obviously, with COVID going on, we try not to get our numbers up that high, but yeah, when we were running strong, we could run 84. We used to have modern tournaments or other Magic tournaments that high, and for Yu-Gi-Oh as well. We're a big Yu-Gi-Oh tournament store too. So
that's awesome.
Yep.
Now I know Yu-Gi-Oh is I'm hopeful is hopefully seeing a resurgence and a lot of new players coming in because they've just launched their digital platform about 3 weeks ago of recording. So by the time this goes up, it's probably been out for about a month and a half. And it's getting ridiculous views on Twitch. It's in the top 5 of streamed platforms. There are some investors looking at making an esport out of the, Duel Masters game. So hopefully that will trickle down into the card game as well. I stopped by last night, just hanging out with a friend and looking around the store, and there was a really decent crowd for Yu-Gi-Oh, and we're still under guidelines and I don't want to say restrictions, but precautions,
right.
And that is to be expected, even though the year that we should not mention by name because we don't want it to keep coming around, keeps coming around. I really hope that we're kind of opening up towards the end of it. Now, how did you go from one location to, did you go from 1 to 2, then 2 to 3, or was it?
Exactly.
Okay.
So we went from the Holmes location, we have been open about two or 3 years. It all fades away after a while. And there was a store in Bluebell called Infinite Quests that was mainly a computer LAN center.
Okay.
That was what they were really noted for. They also did video games, but because there was demand, they had some card players, and they started selling cards. And they so they would have they had a small back room, and they would stick 20, 30 kids in there and play Yu-Gi-Oh on Sunday afternoons. And the man and woman who owned that store decided to get divorced, and they were going to close it. And they had already gotten down; they were only open on weekends at this point. So I had gone up I knew them, and I went up to talk to them and see about buying their product out, like really just buying all their stuff. And the more I talked to them, and they were like, yeah, it's a real shame, we have a nice crowd here. And I said, well, let me talk to your landlord and see if he'd be willing to lease it. Maybe we'll keep it open and just open it as a card store. Because I saw an opportunity there. They did have some player base, so it wasn't like I'm opening a brand new store with not knowing what was going on. So I talked to the landlord, who was very receptive to the idea. So I said, okay, I'll buy all your product. You take out all the land stuff, because I wasn't interested in any of that, and we'll just make it into a card store. And basically what we did was I bought all our fixtures and everything, so she cleared out all her stuff. We went in and just put in tables and chairs, more tables and chairs, and ran it just like their home business, and it just took off. It just was unbelievably incredible. The first 2 weeks we were open, we did double the business of my store that had been open for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was just, there was a definite need there, and we just tapped right into it there too. So, and then about 3 years later, another store in Wilmington, Delaware was going out of business, and I had a friend who's a Yu-Gi-Oh judge who judged down there, and he said, hey, they're going out of business too. Maybe you want to talk to them about opening a store down there. And I said, so I talked to them, and I looked at their store, and it was way too small. And but I talked to the landlord there, and we went back and forth, and I'm like, look, you want way too much money for an unavailable store you have. So after about 3 months, they finally came back to me and said, what do you want to pay? And I gave them a price, and they said, okay, we'll take it because we're tired of having the store vacant. And that's when we got that store down there, and we moved right in there. That store took a little bit of time to develop. Again, we didn't have a real big building crowd there. The other store was kind of small. Mm-hmm. So it took us more than a year to really get that store to rock and roll. And but now it does really good. So that's how we did.
That's amazing. And I mean, slow and steady, you know, there was a trend, I would say, pre-pandemic where people that played games really got I could just open up a store, and they would find a retail space. They would have maybe a glass counter top, and they would put $5,000 worth of product in the store and turn an open sign on, and lifetime tables and chairs, and
Sure.
Those stores tended not to last. But I mean, obviously, having a business plan, knowing the product, and knowing how to grow based off of, I'm going to assume, your influence from the kids that were in your life.
Sure.
You know,
Exactly.
They would tell you what's good, what's popular, and then obviously you getting into it as well. And so 18 years ago, it started as a project and father-son time. Is your son still involved with the company?
Yes, he actually is taking over for me as I'm pulling back, getting past retirement age, and he's taking over. We call him the Chief Operating Officer now, which is, you know, it's what he does. He does all the ordering, he's in the stores all the time, and I've pulled back and I do more of the bigger project stuff now. So he does the day-to-day stuff, all that. And my other son works for us too. He does all our social media, and he works in the stores a couple days a week to, you know, to keep his hand in it too. But so it's a family affair.
That is absolutely amazing and heartwarming. Like, what started off as like father-son bonding has turned into a family business. And I mean, you guys have a phenomenal reputation. I know that you run some larger events we can talk about here in a second. I believe you have one that's rapidly coming up. So, you know, like the fact that you were able to turn a project into, I'm assuming, a career, and bring the family together. And now it's like, it's just now the sons are employed and they're taking over and running different aspects of the company. Congratulations, that is an awesome accomplishment. So what outside of just the 3 physical stores do you guys do? What else do you do in gaming?
Well, we've done a lot of things over the course of years. One of the big things we do now is we run the Yu-Gi-Oh regionals in the Philadelphia area, and we're the second largest regional in the country. So we usually run them at the Philadelphia Convention Center, and we've been doing it for, I want to say, 8 or 9 years. So for a year, we get 500 to 600 people at each one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they're not small events, and so we've learned how to run big events. But we also used to run Grand Prix trials when Magic used to have those.
Oh, yeah.
And we've run some larger Magic events that we've created ourselves, all before the pandemic, and then everything shut down. We're doing our first regional, Yu-Gi-Oh regional, at the end of March, on March 26th. And we're not doing it in Philadelphia this time. We're doing it out in the Oaks, Pennsylvania, at the Greater Philadelphia Convention Center, mainly because the Philadelphia Convention Center doesn't have any availability until in May. So we wanted to get one in sooner than that. So we're going out there for our first time, so that's a little different for us. But we're expecting 800 players. There has not been a large Yu-Gi-Oh event. They had scheduled 2, one in January and February, large, what they call YCSs. but they canceled them because of Omicron variant. So we're going to be one of the first large events to run in the country, I believe. So it should be fun.
That's going to be amazing. And again, with their digital platform really kind of taking off for them. And I know there are a lot of people that are itching to get back into organized play, in-person play. I'm hoping that it's more than what you're expecting. So if you're expecting 800, I'm hoping you get 1,000. like as long as you can, as long as the venue can handle it, because I would like to see the digital platform also cross over into the physical paper realm. And there are a lot of people that are picking up Yu-Gi-Oh for the first time. Like 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago, I believe, it had more search hits on Google than Magic the Gathering for the first time since the mid 90s.
Wow.
The Yu-Gi-Oh is really gaining in popularity. My son is showing interest. He's 8. He's showing interest in Yu-Gi-Oh, but I'm also having him watch the original animated series. So he's loving that. And it's just one of those things where it's like, it's so nice to see it coming around again. And I hope you guys have success. So one of your sons is doing the social media. I noticed behind us we have like what looks like a little streaming setup for a feature table for an event. So you tell us a little bit about how people can plug in with Alternate Universe, as far as where can people find you? Are you on Facebook? Are you on Twitter? Are you on YouTube?
We're on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you our YouTube channel name, but we just recently promoted one of our other employees to do all our streaming stuff. So Dylan, his name's Dylan, and he's been running all our streaming stuff and setting up for all that, and he's gotten our YouTube channel running. We are definitely doing weekly stream feeds for our modern tournaments on Monday here, which have 30 to 40 players at them. Which seem to be very enjoyable for everybody. Mm-hmm. And then we're moving on with that. We'll probably do some streaming out at the Yu-Gi-Oh! Regional. I haven't talked to them too much about that, but that's one of the ideas we have to get going on. So, yeah, we're moving on. I mean,
so people can find Alternate Universe, and I know that each store has its own Facebook page, I believe. Yep. So people can plug in, look for events. If you're going to be in the Philly area, I strongly recommend coming out. I've played in a couple of events out here. We have Team BCW. We've brought Team BCW through to specifically this location for one of our challenge events back when Star City had the Open Series, because they're just normally right up the road at the Valley Forge casino resort area. Mm-hmm. They would have an event. So we'd bring people in and absolutely wonderful store. I believe later today I'm actually going to travel down to the Wilmington location. Seeing as how most of my friends in Philly work for you, so it's really weird. What a coincidence! I don't know how that happened, but no, it's super nice to get to travel around and see some of the different locations. But the fact that you guys, I know before the pandemic, there was talks of putting on large Magic events, and I know you'd made mention before we started recording that as things get better and as people's confidence in gatherings increases, that you're hoping to go back to that model where you're putting on independent events that are attracting people. And maybe you don't live in Philly, but maybe you live an hour or two away and you want to come play in a larger cash prize event. And I think that's a great void to fill. Plus Yu-Gi-Oh, again, gaining in popularity. I'm really hoping that their larger events, the regional events, are see increased numbers for you.
Oh, I agree. I think. And also Pokemon is coming back. I know they've started scheduling their regionals again. I think there's a regional, I think the first one's in May or something like that. I know I talked to them about it. But so we're coming back, you know what I mean? And we're looking at, the 2 years we've taken off from running big events, we've learned a lot in that amount of time even. So we're very confident we can run successful events.
That's amazing. Now, my last question for you, and again, thank you so much for sharing all this insight with us and taking time with us, but 2 to 3 years down the road, if you had a crystal ball, you could gaze into the future, where would you like to see Alternate Universe, or what are some of the plans that you have that you are willing to share with the viewers and us as to what you would like to see the direction or
Well, yeah, right now we're in a transitional phase, and I was telling you earlier that I'm phasing out as taking over the daily operations of it, and my son's taking over, and he's going to wind up taking over this company, and I'm going to, be phased out almost completely. So he's the one that's going to have to make those decisions. But my idea is we continue to grow our in-store. All of our stores should be Wizards of the Coast premium status by next week, I hope. We have one left to do. Our Wilmington store has already done it. Our home store is going to be up and done maybe next week. And so we'll do that. We're going to continue to run larger tournaments, and obviously we're going to start looking at maybe we should be opening some more stores. When I first opened this store years ago, which used to be in Bluebell, we said I wanted to have like 5 stores at the time, and we've been at 3 for a while. So maybe there isn't a time and place to open up a new store. So.
Might I suggest Indiana, where I live? I'm just throwing that out there. No, we have good game stores up there, but I mean, I've never had an experience in your stores or with your staff where I didn't feel confident that everybody was extremely knowledgeable. Your managers have a personal touch to them where they know what you're looking for, or they're engaging with every customer that comes to your store. You guys have a wonderful selection of cards. You guys have a wonderful selection of sealed product. A little bit of miniatures, a little bit of card games, a lot of card games, and a wonderful play space. So really, I thank you for helping cultivate a great community here in the Philadelphia area, as well as the larger events for people to travel to and from. I'm happy to see you guys getting into streaming. That way we can kind of plug in and watch the different events, and super excited to see what the future holds for you. So Mike, thank you so much for joining me on this BCW Spotlight. Friends, remember, when it comes to collecting, storing, or displaying your hobbies or collectibles, BCW has you covered. Until next time, I'm Rick with BCW, and this has been a BCW Spotlight.